All right, I'll say, how are you all this evening of your time as you create time to exist? Oh, thank you. We will entitle this interaction, Response hyphen Ability. Understand. Oh, all right, thank you. You have many abilities. The two that we will primarily discuss this evening are response ability and, to some degree, manifest ability. For the idea is they are always continuous and you can be a bit conscious about them. And this is what we will discuss. First of all, understand that your ability to manifest is automatic. It is, in that sense, an automatic or on automatic pilot and will always occur, again, according to your beliefs, emotions, thoughts, and ultimately actions. Where the idea of response ability comes in is that you also always have in any given moment the ability to respond to that moment. You, when we say you, create your own reality, and we also say we mean this literally, we say this because you create it all. And in fact, more appropriately, you are not even within a reality that you have created. The reality is within your consciousness. Therefore, any part of what you consider to be your reality, in that you do gradate it into parts, is a reflection of a portion of your consciousness itself. And therefore, you can understand that the varying things with which you relate to and get feedback from are merely external representations of who you are, of your consciousness, of ideas that you are exploring. Therefore, the very situations in your life themselves are part and parcel of you, not separate from you, not happening to you, but happening within you. Therefore, you can understand that you are directly related not only to yourself, but to the events in your reality. They are, again, part of your feedback system. In any given moment, you always have in this physical reality a particular set of choices. And by definition, therefore, other things which are not then available, not in that moment, choices. We are approaching the subject of your ability to respond, response ability, from the perspective of utilizing your given reality in a given moment as feedback, and in that sense playing with it rather than letting it play against you. So what this all boils down to is quite simple. Allowing what is immediately available to be obvious. Allowing the situation itself to be obvious. An obvious reflection to you. An obvious feedback from yourself to yourself. And when, again, you are in any given moment, utilizing your ability to respond according to the feedback that is available in that moment. And therefore, again, letting the situation be most obvious. If there is simply something you wish to do, and it is simply not available in that moment, accept that feedback. Not as feedback that you cannot have or acquire or participate or explore a particular idea, but that, in a sense, you cannot explore it at that moment. And allowing this to be obvious then again grounds you to what you can do and what is right there. But again, this does not mean that you need to sacrifice what it is you wish to do. For that is available in the overall or on the overall scale of your reality. But the way you unfold your simultaneity so that you can experience it rather than simultaneous, a bit at a time, you can understand that the situation itself delivers to you what is available and what isn't. And if you will begin to focus your attention upon the choices that you have, and again factor out those which are not available, keeping in your intention that you still wish to explore that if you do, then grounding yourself to the moment and responding to what is there, utilizing that ability that you always have to respond to what is there, is what will paradoxically bring you most quickly to the thing that seems to now, quote unquote now, not be available. Again, even if it is entirely unrelated to the overall thing you wish to do, what tells you it is related is your excitement, but from what is available. So, in part of your responding, the process of your response itself will be to allow the feedback that is present right before you to simply be obvious. Therefore, you will always know, I wish to do this. It either is available or it is not. Let it be obvious. If it is not available, you do not need to despair and think that you will never get it. You can simply understand that you do not have all the tools that you need to fully appreciate it at that moment. So therefore, what is available will allow you, if you act within your excitement in choosing it with integrity, to acquire synchronistically by coincidence whatever tools, whatever knowledge, whatever resources will actually help you to enjoy that thing you say you wish to express more fully. This boils down to truly trusting each moment for what it contains and not forsaking it for what it seems to not contain. For again, in any given moment, even if it does not contain the direct methodology by which you will obtain the overall thing, does contain the stepping stone necessary to begin to attract that overall idea to you. But again, sometimes in a form which seems obscure, but your excitement tells you it is not obscure. Your excitement tells you it is related. Again, excitement is an expression of who you are. So therefore, anything that you are excited about is connected to anything else that you are excited about because it is all a reflection of who you are. And being a reflection of who you are by convention then makes it related, though not necessarily in the most obvious of ways. So again, much of this has to do with your willingness in any given moment to factor in and out what's available and respond to what is, again, allowing the situation to be obvious if something is not. Is that clear? Therefore, this, if you will begin to focus your attention in such a way, will enable you to begin to manifest, utilize your ability to manifest in a more conscious way. For in each moment, if you are factoring out what is not available and choosing from what is with your excitement, with integrity, you are moving in each moment forward, so to speak, only allowing yourself to take steps consciously according to preference. And a momentum will build behind this, just as many individuals feel there is a momentum behind many things they do not prefer. And this is what then allows the effect of coincidence beginning to deliver things in the most unexpected of ways to cascade and to freely flow into your life. For again, most often when you are functioning from your excitement, the things you say you wish to participate in or that you desire to explore will come in the most unexpected of ways. And the unexpectedness itself is part of the joy, is part of the discovery, is part of your higher self, in a sense, surprising your physical self into its totality, a bit at a time. So again, let the situation be obvious. If you can act, act. But if you cannot, reground yourself to the available choices. Allow us to thank you all for your willingness to continually interact with us in an intimate style as this. For we again learn much from this, and we appreciate your willingness to open up your consciousness to whatever degree you do and share it not only with us, but with other members of your society. For this also unitizes and unifies you as a group and as a pocket of mass consciousness within the overall identification and definition of your mass consciousness. Therefore, from our perspective, you are all giving great gifts both to yourself, but also to the mass consciousness and therefore the totality of your planet and its inhabitants. We appreciate this, for this is how we act. And therefore, we can now identify and share with you that you are beginning to do much the same. And this enables us to truly begin to have the day where we are able to meet face to face come, shall we say, a bit closer. Therefore, on that note, allow us to now open up this interaction for sharing. Sharing. Ace.
Since our last get-together, we've redone the letter that we
All
read
right,
to you.
and we will, in that sense, stick to the format of discussing this at the beginning of the second half of the interaction.
Okay.
All right? That will be, shall we say, the standard format for the time being. Is there something else, however?
Not at the moment. Let me think for a while about what I want to ask you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Sharing.
Elan?
Over there, then you.
Elan, I want to talk about responsibility of our thoughts and emotions.
All right.
In my time, in my age group, we've been taught mostly to always be prepared for the worst. So consequently, my emotions and my responses are not geared toward happiness, but they're geared toward shell shock. They're geared toward protection.
All right, before you proceed, do you perceive that you wish to continue along these lines of thinking?
Oh, absolutely not.
Well, very good. Then you have identified a particular belief that you have, and you are owning it. You have apparently extrapolated how having that belief has you feeling and has you acting. Now, utilize the other idea that we usually share with you. Begin to look at what a person with the belief that you need not prepare for the worst, but perhaps you may wish to prepare for the best, how they would feel and they would act, and simply begin by using your imagination to conjure up the image, but then beginning to willingly act that way. And it is that simple. That simple. But understand you have already completed part of the process, for you are at least willing to own that you have that belief. And that belief will bring with it a lot of the worst, so that you don't waste your time preparing for nothing.
It's the transition from that idea to the other idea, because...
Well, the transition would imply that you are not acting the new way. There is only a transition if you create a process from one to the other. If you simply act the new way, you immediately then simply get the new reality, and you see that the new reality and the old reality are equally valid. So therefore, you can choose either one, and the older one will simply lose its relevance to you.
Elan, is that why we're here? Simply to learn to make these choices of either joy or pain?
You are here to discover. You are here for the joy of unfoldment and learning. Anything else is up to you and your willingness to define why you are here. So that could be one of the purposes, but from our perspective, it is not the reason that all individuals choose this reality. However, the transformation from the more limited thinking to the more limitless approach is quite joyous. So in and of itself, shall we say, you can have a good time in the process.
Thank you, Elan.
But understand, again, if you are feeling that it is taking a long time, you are simply not acting on the new belief. To extrapolate upon this with you, when you feel you need prepare for the worst, fill your mind with that idea for me at this moment, will you?
Okay.
How does that feel?
Very heavy.
All right.
Uncomfortable.
Where do you feel the heaviness? Physically feel it.
in my diaphragm, in my chest.
Now, picturing yourself, keeping that feeling and that belief right there. How do you picture a person with this belief would act? Whatever comes to your mind, share it.
Sad, slow, careful.
Are these qualities of an individual boldly being who they chose to be?
No.
All right. Now, blank your mind. Is it blank?
I think so.
Oh, thank you. Now state to yourself the belief that I must prepare for the best. Now what do you feel?
Joy.
Now you have gone nowhere. You are sitting in the same chair. Nothing has occurred other than you changing your focus. You now feel how different one belief feels from the other, correct?
Yes.
Now go a next step further. How would you act if you were always preparing in a positive way for the best?
Oh my gosh. You'd probably lock me up.
All right. What else?
Joyous, happy, excited.
Is there a heaviness?
No.
How does your heart and your solar plexus feel now?
Very light.
Do you now understand the power that you have to assign? And when you do assign, your imagination falls right into place with the appropriate emotions.
On it feels too easy.
Oh, well, let's look at that belief then also.
Thank you.
Blank your mind. Oh, you're not getting away that easily. Now, state to yourself the belief, everything is difficult. Everything requires a process. Perhaps I will never actually get anywhere. How does that feel?
Heavy and slow.
Deja vu. How are you acting? Are you setting up all your processes?
Thank you for showing me the difference.
All right, we are not through. Now, picture the thought in your mind, simply state it aloud to yourself, so to speak. It is that simple. Everything is that simple. Reality is rich. Reality contains complexities, but I move through that reality and flow with my reality in simplicity. How does that feel?
Delightful.
How do you act?
Light. Excited. Wanting to get to it.
What do you do?
Whatever it is I want to do.
All right. All these ideas have equal weight. You can say it seems to be that simple, or you can make it as complicated as you wish. It will be up to you. But the keys that we are handing you will at least let you know that you get to choose. There is no more weight behind any idea than another idea, other than the weight that an individual is willing to ascribe it must have. But if you are willing to view alternatives, if you are willing to truly check out the system we have discussed of your imagination, simply saying the new belief will automatically filter out a different emotion. So you can always show yourself how it is up to not what's out there, but how you choose to look at it, how you choose to relate to it, that gives the effect that you get, not the external reflection, not the situation, not the person themselves. Always you. Do you wish it to be that simple?
Yes.
Then go right ahead.
Thank you, Elan.
And to you. Perhaps we will discuss this again. Shedding.
Elan,
Yes.
I'm greetings.
And to you, greetings as well.
I'm excited about asking you several technical type questions, which I believe are all interconnected.
All right.
First one is, what's missing in our scientists' understanding of your spacecraft operation?
First of all, relationship of consciousness, in that you cannot factor consciousness out of any equation. The perception of the equation itself must be factored in. And secondly, again, the ideas about objects residing in space and time, as opposed to our willingness to look at space and time as being properties of the object. That is the primary overall difference. There are simple experiments that individuals can begin to do to begin to understand that space and time are properties of the object. When scientists will begin to be willing to measure vibrational qualities of objects in as many ways as is available to your society at this timing, that will enable them to see the differences in vibration when an object is moved from one location to another.
Okay. Once you decide in your scoutcraft, let's say, to travel from circling Essassani to being here in our neighborhood around Earth,
then I will simply think in this instance about how interacting with your society allows me to feel, and that vibrational emotion, energetically motionful energy will literally lock on to your coordinates. We utilize emotion in that sense.
what time elapses for you to travel that distance?
Well, the traveling itself will be instantaneous. You can say there will be a few moments, perhaps prior and after, for us to reorient our consciousness.
Just to the side, refresh my memory. How many light years is Essassani from Earth?
Well, again, if you were to overlay our dimension over yours, it would approximately be 500 light years. But again, this is arbitrary, for we are also separated, so to speak, by time as well as space.
My third question, maybe you've answered it, was when will our scientists discover how to exceed the speed of light? Maybe that really is what you've answered on.
Well, in a sense, you may find they will not. That is, in a sense, one of the definitional barriers of your particular reality. Not all realities, but yours. So therefore, again, it is more likely that what we have been discussing in terms of time and space being properties of the object will begin to be looked at before there will be any true long travel.
They just got to get themselves out of the idea of traveling at any particular speed.
Well, they do not have to, but it will make the trip a bit faster. There is the possibility of, shall we say, approaching that speed, which will in that sense shorten many of the traveling times, but still, this would still be 2 years each way. And then there is the interesting effect of the slowing down of time upon the craft in relation to the time on the planet, so that when the inhabitants come back, only a few of their years later, everyone has aged or died that they have known. So perhaps that will not be the most practical way to travel if you wish to come back and have, shall we say, a family.
I guess you just sort of confirmed part of Einstein's theory of relativity.
Ace.
Is teleportation really based on the same approach of just changing coordinates?
There are other ways in that sense, but that is one, and the one we are familiar with, yes.
Now, Einstein...
It will be, shall we say, a bit simpler initially to start out with substances of homogeneous nature. In other words, in order to determine subtle differences in vibration, it will be most helpful to start out with one solid material so that you can get used to the measuring of these styles of vibration. Then you can get, shall we say, more complicated once that has been established. But as there are more elements present in any particular item, shall we say, it becomes a bit more complex.
Einstein failed to discover the missing link of a unified field theory.
Again, because of the factoring out of consciousness, which is the unified field.
Will this discovery then explain and tie into my previous questions? And I guess you just really said yes. Okay, yes. I'm getting.
You are doing just fine.
Okay. Yeah, because I'd written this out as what I thought was sort of a logical approach. Does the so-called life force form at least a part of this whole subject we've been talking about? Are you familiar with the work and theories of Warren York and Matt Campbell?
Not by that name.
Okay. They use the term etheric field which serves as the medium for all forms of energy to propagate through. Is that at all familiar to you as to what their theories are?
There is a peripheral understanding of that idea, but again, we will refer back to the prime vibration of infinite creation, the primary frequency of all that is, as being that mediating field. You can call it many things. One other thing can be called as electromagnetic field.
Well, let me ask this question. Does energy have to propagate through a medium?
The energy that is defined as having such a necessity, yes. There are other definitional realities altogether. In other words, yes and no. It depends what reality you are speaking of. Do understand that there are a plethora, an infinite number of different styles of physical realities. So some will have this definition and some will not. That is simply one of the foundational definitions of a particular reality.
I'd like to close here because I don't want to take too much time, but I'd like to read a paragraph from an article by Dr. Tesla from the New York Times dated April 1908.
Please do.
Every ponderable atom is differentiated from a tenuous fluid, filling all space merely by spinning motion, as a whirl of water in a calm lake. By being set in motion, this fluid, the ether, becomes gross matter. Its movement arrested, the primary substance reverts to its normal state. It appears then possible for man, through harnessed energy of the medium and suitable agencies for starting and stopping ether whirls, to cause matter to form and disappear. At his command, almost without effort on his part, old worlds would vanish and new ones would spring into being. He could alter the size of this planet, control its seasons, adjust its distance from the sun, guide it on its eternal journey along any path he might choose through the depths of the universe. He could make planets collide and produce his suns and stars, his heat and light. He could originate life in all its infinite forms. To cause at will the birth and death of matter would be man's grandest deed, which would make him the mastery of physical creation, make him fulfill his ultimate destiny. Can you comment?
Yes, you already do this. However, again, in subtle ways, for you have the definition of continuity in your reality. There is not so much the idea of the birth and death of matter, but the transformation to and from of matter to and from energy. For matter is simply, shall we say, another form of energy, a more dense, if you will, form of energy. Therefore, again, you already do this. You already alter your reality, your world, literally in your day-to-day reality, depending upon your perception and your relationship with it, though perhaps he meant in a more dramatic style, which is also possible, but not one of the definitions in the mass consciousness of the reasons for partaking of this reality at this time. So you can understand that there is a parallel manifestation of a similar earth whereby such a thing is physically possible, for you cannot imagine non-existence. He was tapping in that sense to other dimensions of experience and as well interpreting your creatorhood, your manifest ability in this life, in this world.
Has Dr. Tesla reincarnated on this planet?
In a sense, no. You will understand that consciousness has expanded to become part of the mass consciousness itself. Perhaps you can say a portion of that consciousness may have reincarnated as an individual, but in a sense, you can understand that he will be very closely represented and tied into, shall we say, the electromagnetic field of the planet itself, being that was his primary focus.
Last question. Has Einstein reincarnated?
This is not immediately apparent.
Okay, thank you.
We do thank you for asking.
Thank you very much.
We will come back to it when it is.
Okay.
And we thank you as well. Shedding.
Elan.
Ace.
Good evening, Elan.
And to you.
Thank
Good
you
evening.
for coming.
Thank you as well.
I've heard on several of the tapes from California the word Shivai.
Ace.
What does that mean?
That is a word that, shall we say, is a translation of our ancient remnant language that will be indicative, or shall we say, somewhat translated in your language as, all right, go for it. In our society, an individual saying Shivai would simply be, in that sense, expressing their very pointed intention to go ahead on a certain path. And individuals understanding that that individual was consciously, boldly being who he chose to be, would step aside and allow that individual to proceed unfettered.
All right.
Therefore, Shivai to you.
Thank you. I shall Shivai.
And to you. To.
A hot.
You'll get it.
A hot too.
To.
A hot too.
Then don't forget. To. All right. Perhaps we'll have a language class another night.
Elan, I
Yes.
used to sleep under an electric blanket, and there's been some discussion that they're not good for.
Before you proceed, how do you feel about this?
I feel lovely. I enjoy the warmth.
Then allow that particular information to be nice information, one of the choices that you do not prefer.
So it's not messing up my electromagnetic field?
Again, I ask you, what do you think?
All right. Nope. Also, another thing I've been noticing on tapes is discussions about our not being able to directly enter our timeline, past or future, that if we
In a sense.
do, it's a parallel timeline.
In a sense, yes.
Parallel. Is that true? Because if we can't enter our own timeline because we're already there in the past and the future.
That is not the reason, but that is also true.
That's not the reason, but that's also true.
Yes.
If it's true, I'll have to think about that one.
All right.
I had one other question. I can't remember it.
Would you like to know the reason?
Oh, I know what it was.
Now, again, there are difficulties in translating this, so allow us,
Yes, I would like to know.
if you will. When you are first born, oh boy. You did not, at that moment, appear in your own past. Does that make any sense? As the you were just born to be.
In this lifetime.
Yes.
But in a previous lifetime.
No. Do not complicate this yet.
Okay.
Therefore, at the moment of your birth, you had not inserted yourself into your own past. As you grow, you had not inserted yourself into your own past. Should you reach an age where you decide to go back in time, when you get into a timeline which is parallel to your own, in that moment, you have changed what has occurred. Up till that point, you had not been inserted into your own past. And then the moment you decide to, you have been inserted into a past. Is this translating at all?
Yes.
So therefore, you can say that the past you insert yourself into is automatically skewed off as parallel, for you had not inserted yourself into your own past up till that point. And the moment that you do, you change the whole timeline. We are not sure if this is translating.
Well, if you have a past, present, and future lifetime.
Well, we are talking about in this lifetime now. This one lifetime.
All right.
When you, in a sense, travel back into time and skew off a parallel reality, yes, you may be present with a past reincarnational life, but this is not the reason why it skews off a parallel reality. It has to do with your definition of a timeline. Before, during, after. And if you had a period in which you were not inserted and then you were, by definition, that's another line. Either you were or you were not.
Yeah, I see that.
All right.
Yeah.
Proceed.
One other question. Do I have any counterparts? Is my soul manifested in multiple beings on this earth or just one?
We are aware of one counterpart you have not met.
Oh, yeah?
And it is not necessarily likely that you will.
Oh.
Very often the exploration of counterparts are to have entirely different styles of experience in the same time span. And therefore, because you can only experience the reality that you are the vibration of within your actions now, if you are exploring far different ideas, you are unlikely to meet up.
I may not want
From the
to.
perspective of the counterpart, you will merge into the counterpart. From your perspective, the counterpart will merge into you.
Thank you very much.
And to you. Shedding. Over there.
I have a couple of things to talk about. It's mostly my dreams from the night after we had our session
Do share.
that night, and I wrote them down as you asked or suggested.
Yes.
And I remember you speaking with me, or well, it was you or maybe Misha or Kaija. These are my future self and her counterpart for everybody else. And I remember two others and me lying in bed, right where I was physically, and then we were talking about stuff, and then all of a sudden we were looking through the walls and windows, but the windows were walls. The walls were clear; they were gone.
Well, in a sense, you were experiencing being aboard a craft.
Okay. And we were seeing. You were pointing out clouds that I thought were clouds, and I was seeing the craft all around. A lot of other ones.
Ace.
All around. And you were pointing them out to me and the other person, or the other one, energy that was there. And I woke up physically, and the sky was orange outside. I don't know what time it was, but I had this intuitive voice going, "Go, go, get up and go out and look up." And I said, "No, it doesn't excite me. I'm too comfortable here."
Oh, all right.
And I went back to sleep, knowing that everything's perfect and I wasn't missing anything.
Well, we thank you upon issuing the invitation to interact, your willingness to do so, and then bring it back as a solid, so to speak, memory.
Well, I had a lot of fun.
Ace.
And as I woke up the next morning, the world was in a honeycomb pattern. With my eyes, the first thing I saw when I woke up was everything covered with a honeycomb sections. You know what I mean by that?
We understand.
It was really neat. And
In a sense, you can understand that to be representative of the holographic matrix of reality.
okay, I thought it was something cool like that.
Was that cool enough?
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
And the other thing when I was waking up Elan was, as I woke up, I was seeing the crystal I gave you, and it was metamorphized.
Changing face.
Yeah, in all these different matrices, and into the image of my face, and then different sculptures, and so you can change it around like that.
Well, in a sense, you handed us a solid crystal, and we, in that sense, converted it to a liquid, so to speak, crystal. Neat and cool, all right.
I experienced that, and the way that it can change, and that was really interesting to me.
You are that crystal. You are the master crystal, and you too can allow yourself to transform into anything you wish. That is only a symbol.
Okay. The last night's dream I had, you told me that I have many dreams where I'm with Essassani Well, last night I will attribute it to being Essassani or some other beings because it was a lot of fun and we were going through the forest on some sort of mission or exploration. Very important to us at the time in the moment. And I remember looking at the brown mud we were running around through and seeing these footprints about 7 inches long and 3 big toes, big, beautiful footprints. I don't know whose footprints.
You'll find out. That's the idea.
I don't remember seeing myself from the outside in, so I don't know what form I was taking at that time, but that was interesting.
Do you see yourself now?
Yes.
Just checking.
Okay.
Is that all?
For now, yeah.
Oh, we thank you for your willingness to walk with us in dream time. This can continue if you wish and allow.
Yes.
Thank you. Sharing.
Elan.
Hey, smile.
Elan, is there in fact a...
Before you proceed,
Yes.
upon my craft at this time is myself, my counterpart, and the female that you have interest in. Do proceed. Just wish to get that out of the way. Did you write that down?
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Elan, is there in fact a past that can be experienced, or is it rather that we create the past as we choose to experience it?
It is both. You can experience it close to how, in that sense, it was, shall we say, played out, or you can create a new past altogether. In what context are you speaking?
Okay, well, I can understand that if one chooses to experience the past that one is not inserted into, one would necessarily spin off a parallel universe.
Ace.
However, is it not true that we have in fact had past lives, either here or somewhere?
Ace.
Yes. Is it possible to switch one's focus such that one can experience being in that lifetime as it was without disrupting anything in the timeline?
Oh, absolutely. But you will be as that person, not you acting as that person.
And when one does that, does one necessarily have an opposed forgetfulness?
In a sense, you can say self-imposed, yes.
Yes. Can that be, can one change the way that shows up such that one can experience being who one was and at the same time be aware of being in the present time?
Well, very often an individual will simply get caught up in being who they are, now assuming the vibration, and it will have no relevance to who you are. So, shall we say it is possible, but most unlikely.
Can be done.
Yes, anything can.
Can be done and may have practical application.
Well, it may, and again, will depend on your purposes for doing so. If it is as an escape from what you are now experiencing, you are most unlikely to experience it. If it is simply for an exploration and an expansion of your understanding, then it is more possible. We have discussed this before.
And trips into the future are equally possible
Oh, yes.
along this timeline, as opposed to a parallel timeline.
In a sense, no. In a sense, you will again skew off another timeline. Do not ask us to explain that one.
However, I would like to ask why, since one can go into the past in a life that one has been, why cannot one go into the future? And
As a future self, perhaps, as the self you are now, it would be a parallel line.
right. Well, I'm not talking about as the self I am now.
You're talking about as a future self?
Yes.
Then yes.
But still having the awareness or being able to bring back the awareness to the present self.
It is possible.
Thank you. And I have a request.
Ace.
Right. Lydia is in Greenwich in a 200-year-old house and choosing to explore. I guess she's choosing to explore fear and her considerations about safety and the like. She has requested that I ask that if possible, you would spend some time with her this evening if that's a possibility.
If in that sense she wishes to tap into our energy and will then validate what it is she gets, absolutely. This is always available.
Thank you very much.
Again, it will have more to do with her willingness to validate it more than our willingness to be there. We offer our assistance continually in this regard. Anyone can access our stream. All right?
Thank you.
And to you, shooting.
Elan.
Over there, female.
Elan, I'm experiencing right now a lot of energy, and I'm translating it as very cold.
Well, you said cool.
I guess so.
Do proceed.
Is there any other?
What is your interpretation of it? Be bold.
I just feel like I might be downloading a lot of energy, just taking on a lot of energy.
All right. Sit with that for a while.
Okay.
Over there,
Elan.
female.
What's faster than the speed of light?
In a sense, you can say the speed of mind or the speed of thought.
What's faster than that?
Nothing that you would define within your reality. You can understand there are ideas that would travel faster, but that would not translate into your reality. For the purposes of answering your question most concisely, the speed of thought in that sense would be tops. In this definitional reality, whereby you have parameters that you set down.
Okay. Thank you.
And to you. This is one of the reasons, in a sense, these channelings are possible. And it is not dependent on time and space. Male.
Yes, Elan.
Ace.
I have a few questions actually sharing too. The last time you asked me about Palladium, if I would draw, suggesting that I would draw some of the ships or the ship in my childhood that I had remembered.
Have you done so?
Yes, I've drawn a couple of different types of ships.
What has that allowed you to discover?
I've also drawn some of what I thought were the individuals of the ships, not perfectly, but it has led me to discover that the ship had, oh boy, I'm not sure really yet. I'm still just going through the process of this. I'm not even finished with the whole idea of the drawings.
All right. What do you wish to discuss?
Well, can you tell me the drawings that I have done so far? One is a ship. It looks sort of like the windows, and I've separated the 3 or 4 that I've made. One, I've had 2 separate windows on the ship. One, I've made a thin stretch of windows with like sort of a plate kind of bending inward. Can you explain to me a little bit about that, if at all, what those ships are?
Well, again, they are Pleiadian in origin. And as far as the windows, we will let you continue to explore so that you can crystallize your particular memory in that sense, which will be helpful. Is there something else?
Yes, I've had some dreams that have been pretty regular now. It seems like I've been, the dreams have been related to the pyramids more and more. And
are you attracted to them?
yes,
Then go there. Any place you find yourself attracted to is your particular excitement. And this excitement tells you that there will be something that you will discover upon going there that perhaps is not available where you are. So should the opportunity come up to go to any place that you are attracted to, go. It is not an accident that it attracts you, whatever it is, wherever it is.
I have a question actually. I was reading a newsletter that a friend gave me, and it talks about 32 planets of the Interplanetary Confederation in the Milky Way galaxy, and supposedly what it says here, just briefly, is that there's going to be like 33,000 distinguished teachers and scientists from 32 planets in the year 2001 that will join in a equal connection of landing in, I think, California somewhere. There are landing sites that have been actually put aside for this particular purpose. Can you elaborate on this at all?
Those particular numbers are not familiar to us. It is not our perception that that is necessarily so. That particular, shall we say, beginning of your new century will be, shall we say, rather busy. But we are, again, not familiar with the particular designation that you are sharing.
Okay, are you familiar with the...
Our particular understanding of the quote-unquote 32 planets, from our perspective, would have to do with the subdivision of the same association of 300 plus worlds that we are a part of.
Okay. Can you tell us where your particular vessel is at the moment?
Our vessel is around our home planet.
I see. Are there any other vessels other than your Essassani in this area tonight?
In this particular area, no. Around your planet, quite a few.
Could you tell us what their actual what's the terminology I'm trying to come up
Origin?
with? Not origin and or their activities that they're involved in.
Understand that their origins will vary, and understand that their particular ideas of exploration are in general observation, though there are from time to time contact in various forms, sometimes between individuals physically and many times in similar formats as this.
You said at the beginning of the sharing that you shared with us that things now will be getting closer in terms of the time when we can meet.
Ace.
And not necessarily Essassani, but maybe whoever it's going to.
Yes, but that particular reference was to us as well.
To you as well. Could you elaborate more specifically about this?
Allow us to elaborate on the following. Your particular connection, which we have again identified as being Pleiadian in nature. If you are willing to begin to participate in this connection, much of the information and much of the invitations that you are, shall we say, pondering to issue, you will be able to issue directly. So therefore, we will refrain from elaborating more and allow you to begin to explore what we have already discussed with the breathing and the symbols and your willingness to initiate contact from your end.
Okay. That's all I have to say right now.
All right. At this timing, allow us to pause for a break of 10 to 15 of your minutes of counting and resume contact at that time. All right, I'll say, before we continue, allow me to make a few additional comments about response ability. Now understand, you have the ability, again, to always respond to whatever is available. And you are ultimately also responsible for all the choices that you have chosen. Even the unconscious ones are you responsible for in that moment that decision was made, you responded in some way, either consciously or unconsciously, to what was available. So therefore, allow us to say that although you are responsible for everything you have always done, this does not mean that we intend in any way to ascribe blame to the things that you have responded to in a negative way. Response ability and reminding you of your ability to respond allows you to take any symbol that you have created and either utilize it in a positive way, or if it seemed negative and continuing to have negative effects, can be transformed and integrated in a positive way. So we do, again, not mean this to ascribe blame for the things you do not prefer. Simply as the things that you do not prefer come up, and they will come up in the perfect timing for you to transform them, you in that perfect timing also have the ability to respond and have the ability in that response to transform it, to respond in a positive, integrative way. So allow us to make that distinction, for that is quite important. Also, understanding, as we had earlier discussed, that everything as is an external reflection of you, and you are it most literally, your entire reality. This also applies to your government. And you have as well the ability to respond and to state and boldly represent who you are to them in a loving way. So therefore, allow us to proceed with the beginning of this half of the interaction with any of the proposals or projects by members of your society that are created in order to allow your government in an acceptable way to now begin to disperse the information that they have withheld about our existence, the existence of extraterrestrial societies. We thank you for your willingness to begin to become more active in this regard, but again, not by protesting, not by complaining, not by casting dispersions, not by placing blame, but by simply, in an integrated way, sharing with that other portion of yourself that you are simply now ready to be responsible. And not only are you willing to share what they know, but you are willing from your end to share what you know. On that note, we will proceed. Shedding.
Elan,
Yes.
we have a revised letter that we've taken all the negative connotations out of the letter.
All right.
And
We shall see.
Okay.
Do proceed.
Okay, it says, Ari, request for full disclosure of UFO files. Dear President Bush, we are a group who have individually had experience with UFOs and or extraterrestrials. It is our opinion that with all the exposure through the media, including cinema, newscasts, and books, that there are very few people who have not heard of ETs and UFOs. However, the whole subject remains one of speculation, lacks credibility, and is not accepted as a serious subject for inquiry on the part of reputable research scientists, largely due to the lack of full disclosure of all of the facts concerning the subject since the 40s. We are now entering the 90s, the age of computers, with all the ease of access of information that has allowed. We invite you at this time to consider with us that your public has matured and is ready to take responsibility for the reality that they have co-created. More and more people are realizing that the government is an extension of themselves, even as those elected officials who comprise the government realize they have come from the people and were put into office by the consensus of the people. We have evolved beyond the us against them mentality of the 60s and have entered into the us and them understanding of the 90s. We live in a time where there really can be no secrets and where deception, no matter how awful, is virtually impossible, as evidenced by the recent failure of Saddam Hussein in the Persian Gulf conflict. Satellite communications have virtually brought the most distant point on the globe as close as your television or computer monitor. Information is readily available. Many individuals have had some type of experience involving UFOs and or ETs. A typical response is to keep this information to oneself or share it only secretly to avoid diversion and ridicule. It can only serve the better interest of all of us to share the experiences we have had with others and to allow the truth to be known. We invite you at this time to acknowledge the maturity of your constituency and their ability to responsibly deal with the truth. We are requesting a public disclosure of any and all information and physical evidence concerning UFOs and ETs. This can only serve to create an atmosphere of mutual trust and understanding between the people and their government. As we write this letter, we know what we know and can only guess what you know, and you know what you know and can only guess what we know. We are in this together. We co-create, and really, even as we printing this is not that great. As we
suggest that when distributing it, that the printing is very clear. Do proceed.
Even as we co-created our government, actually is what it says, and our societies, as any chain is only so strong as its weakest link, so any society is only so responsible as its least informed member. This letter is our first step towards creating an atmosphere of openness and trust within which we can all realize our goals and objectivities. The provincialism of the Middle Ages gave way to the nationalism of the 1800s, which in turn gave way to the globalism of the 80s. We sincerely believe that this in turn is giving way to the universalism of the 90s. Many of us have absolutely no doubt that not only is someone out there, but representatives of many civilizations have been walking this planet and interacting with its inhabitants for a long time, perhaps since human beings themselves have walked this planet. Whatever the challenges we are called to face, there is no question that we will be far more effective together in an atmosphere of openness, honesty, and trust than would be possible were we to continue creating the separation that has obviously existed in the past. Let us move forth together. In closing, we suggest that beneficial dialogue can take place between your representatives and our group. To establish an initial exchange, please contact our spokesman, who can be reached 488, and then it goes into the phone number. May we hear from you by May 30th, 1992. Respectfully yours, Ken Lloyd Weiner. See attached list. And the attached list says, we, the undersigned, do respectfully request full disclosure of all information in government files pertaining to UFOs and ETs.
All
Yeah,
right.
that's it.
This is one way, and this would, by and large, fulfill many of the parameters that we had suggested. One minor change would be in your discussing the progression of thought to, say, 1980s, 1990s, for you jump from the 1800s to simply the 80s. That is just a minor point of clarification. What will you now do with this?
Okay, well, just to get your minor point of clarification, could the letter be done just the way it is without going to another meeting of our group to...
That will be up to you, and we will never in that sense say send this or that, simply that this meets the criteria, this does not. There were some alterations from the original idea, and there were some impactful statements that perhaps were left out. Was it heavily edited?
I don't think so. I mean, it was collectively edited more or less than anything else.
Oh, well, again, proceed on your excitement. But now that you have something that you feel good about, that is not invalidational in any way, what will you do? Where will you send it?
Okay, this is a question. I think there might be others in the group here that want to ask some of those. One of the confusion I have is this one we addressed to President Bush as of our last
That
meeting.
will be one place to send it, and we suggest that it is not the only place that you send it. That will be more of a token gesture from your point of view, from your perspective. But there will be others, and we had suggested some of them. One was your ex-President Carter, and as you have seen this evening, even your ex-President Reagan was on some level involved in this. So you can enlist whatever aid from any parties that would seem interested in simply requesting in a loving, respectful way that the information that is already contained now be dispersed and shared.
Okay, so
therefore, whoever it excites you to send it to, we suggest you do. We suggest you trust that excitement. We suggest that you make the beginning, in that sense, a little bit more pliable so that you can address it to whoever, in that sense, you are sending it to. You can also understand that there would be other ideas of how to word this so that this information can be from members of your society to other members of your society. For the more individuals that are lovingly made aware that such a thing is possible, the more who have the propensity to participate will, in that sense, come out of the woodwork, so to speak.
Okay, you bring up a lot of questions.
Very good.
This letter here is only really one of many forms that I think we're approaching at. This is not the end-all letter of all letters.
Well, again, a multi-dimensional approach will be most effective. One letter will do very little. Many of the same letter will do more. Many of the same messages in other different ways. Again, utilizing your excitement for criteria. Individuals may create songs, may create dances, may create artwork, may create sculptures, all types of ideas, all different approaches. It need not be so pointed, a letter from one to another, though that is a very effective way to communicate to, in that sense, representative structure.
Right. I think last meeting of the people that came up to Southbury was that who are we going to send a letter to, or who, we were not, I think, and it's still, that was my confusion.
Well, understand that there are many other organizations as well interested in getting to the bottom, so to speak, of this. And you can also send copies of this to them.
Mm-hmm.
They, in turn, will be excited to send it, if you will, to different individuals. So it can have an exponential expanding effect by simply following your excitement. Oh, today I'm excited to send this to such and such. Do it.
Okay, now could the letter B where we say, Dear President Bush, I want to get your end of it as a suggestion. We can say, Dear former President Carter and so forth and use the same letter?
Or Dear Mr. Carter, whatever you wish. You can use the same letter, but repersonalize it to each individual.
Repersonalize.
Again, this is only a suggestion. It is up to you. You would not want to send a letter to your ex-President Carter addressed to your President Bush, I assume.
Okay, I understand that completely. Now, if we repersonalize it, that means that it would be suggestible that we have another meeting to come up with a letter that would be for each and then each individual, such as Carter.
Tis up to you. You also have in your devices the ability to simply change the one thing and reprint it.
Uh-huh.
Tis up to you.
Could you give us a suggestion as an equal suggestion as to what you would recommend?
We already have. Act on the suggestions we have made and allow your excitement and your imagination to expand them. You will begin to get a response and then we can discuss the response. But again, we put out to all of you that in whatever way you are excited to make this communication, please do so. This is one way. There are many ways. The more creative you get and the more you do so with your intention being from your heart of hearts to simply get to the bottom of the information, the more you will create many different ways and more different approaches and directions that are embarked upon will give a sense to your representational structure, your government, that this is coming from many angles and be that much more compelling for them to comply. The more loving, suggestive communications that are made, the more the effect will be enhancing, for there have been very many invalidational requests up till this point, and they have been marginally successful. There has been some success from even that, but we suggest that the new, more suggestive, equal approach will have a more accelerated effect.
Okay, so also beyond this letter, every individual in this room and others can individually comprise a letter that they can send out to people, organizations, or whoever would be able to bring forth information to us.
Yes, and there are many, as you say, organizations, UFO groups, magazines, publications. Use your imagination. You need not come and ask, is it all right to send it here, Elan? You can if you wish, but the idea is you can trust your imagination and excitement. I feel I should send it to such and such is enough validation. I feel I would take the same letter and address it to different people, do that. I feel I must change this letter slightly for this person than that person, do that. Trust yourself. But you now have a template, a mold, a model that allows you to see how you can make a communication in a loving way. And again, we refer you back to the original letter, which other than making a reference to a cover up in such a way that may come off as slightly invalidational, was fine as well.
Okay.
So if you wish to have another meeting, if it excites you, if you wish to network in this way, go right ahead and use your imagination for different, shall we say, individuals or groups that might also be interested and involve them as well.
Right. So what about Congress, our U.S. Congress and our U.S. Senate?
Well, that would be one most obvious place to whatever degree it excites you to communicate with. But not as a whole, as a body, but to individuals. For that will always have, shall we say, a more direct effect.
In your observance, are there any individuals in the U.S. Senate or Congress that you have observed that are more open to communicating with us?
There are many. One we shall suggest. One moment. Is human known as Barry Goldwater. In that sense, that individual has done some poking around, made some requests for the disclosure of this information. And this approach, in a sense, may or may not appeal to that individual. But again, use your own ability to attract information, to attract names, to attract interested parties, and trust your own ability, each and every one of you.
Mm-hmm.
And if there are other ways, and again, entirely different from this, do that as well. You can have fun. This need not be so heavy. Can be fun.
Well, it's been fun up until now. I mean, it's still fun.
All right. Do not mean to rain on the parade.
I'm just gonna stop talking. I don't know where to go with this thing.
All right. You have gone quite far. Now simply move, do, and allow any other individuals who are present or who even hear of this on your tape to approach you and be open to those communications. You will begin, now that you are putting out the signal, to attract in reflections or echoes of your signal. Then you will have, shall we say, more to play with.
Mm-hmm. I see. All right.
At this timing, allow us to express to you all our unconditional love and appreciation to you for your willingness to dream your lives and begin now to live your dreams. We bid you a most fond and loving good evening.